Artist, you good?
Yep, I got you. Uh, we'll start with you, Gary.
Hey, Sean.
Yeah.
Um, can you give us an update on Cooper Kupp and anyone else that suffered injuries?
Yeah. So three guys have injuries that they'll be out for a good amount of time. Cooper Kupp with his ankle. Jonah Jackson re-aggravated his shoulder, and John Johnson got his shoulder as well. And then a little mild groin where we'll kind of keep him out for the next couple days, but he should be good for the game with Josh Karty. But those three guys will be all out for an extended period of time.
Will any of them be going to injured reserve?
Yeah, there's a possibility, all three of them. We're kind of running out of those spots, and we're only into week 3 in terms of the return to play, but that is a possibility for all of those guys.
Um, with Cooper, well, could you just kind of take us through each one of them individually and how that impacts their position group and what you
Yeah,
guys?
those are major impacts. I think the thing that first and foremost, you feel terrible for these guys, the amount of work and time and effort that goes into it. And, we've had some unfortunate breaks, and it's happened really early, and it's definitely nothing that I've been exposed to. For you guys that have kind of been covering us back to 22, that was unprecedented, but that was throughout the course of the year. This is unique, but this offers an opportunity for us to be what we say we want to be. But I think as it relates to John Johnson, big miss as a big loss as a safety. Young guys will be asked to be able to step up. Guys that we do have confidence in, but his communication, his command, his playmaking ability will be tremendously missed. And he will be back at some point, but that'll be his loss will be major. And then for Jonah, it's really tough. I mean, the amount of moving parts that we've had offensive line wise has been wild. And that's such an important spot to be able to get a rapport with the guy that you're playing next to. And we've had basically a Rolodex of guys from the very start of training camp. On a positive, we will get Alaric back, but whether it was at center and then playing guard, and thought he did some positive things yesterday. He's such a tough, competitive guy, and he wants to be out there. And he injured that and aggravated that shoulder in the third quarter and continued to play through it. But that's a big loss for him. And then obviously Cooper kind of speaks for itself, what he's meant to our team over the years. And for all three of those guys, you hate it because you see the work that they put in. That none of these are season ending, but they are extended periods of time, and every week is precious. So I feel for those guys, but we have to continue to persevere, be resilient, and do a great job of playing better football than what yesterday was.
And then I guess just to be clear, so at this point, no determination has been made on whether any of those guys will go on injured reserve.
No, we haven't determined that yet, but they would all be possible candidates for sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sarah.
Sean, what is the injury for Cooper?
It's an ankle sprain.
Ankle sprain. Okay.
Yep.
And I know you touched on it yesterday about the run game and you couldn't really get Kyron going, but there's another injury on the offensive line. But what do you guys need to do in order to change that?
Well, I think everybody has a hand in that. I certainly, it starts with me. Putting guys in better spots. I think we got to be able to do some different things, but stay connected, handle movement. Play as hard as we can to be able to get a body on a body and give ourselves a chance. We had a lot of free hitters. Didn't handle some of the movement that Arizona presented, and those are things that can all be corrected on. But we have to execute, and the margin for error was slim. We didn't play well enough on offense or defense to give ourselves a chance. There were some bright spots special teams wise, but for us to be down as quickly as we were, and then you get out of the flow of the game, and you give Arizona credit. They forced a lot of those things. They did a great job. They came ready to go, and I take a great deal of responsibility in making sure that we have a better week of preparation and put out there a better product when we get our next crack at it next week.
You said yesterday that you couldn't take anything from the game. Now that you've watched film and you've had some time away from the game, is there anything that you could learn from yesterday?
Oh, there's a lot that I was saying there wasn't a lot of positives. I think there's special teams that I mentioned, but what I can take from it is an opportunity for us to see how we handle some adversity, for us to be the people that we want to be in terms of how we move forward and how we handle these things. And I've told you guys before, that's the separators. And and we got to go be about it. There's not really many words. It's more about how we move and how we handle it and how we move forward. And I did like the look in guys' eyes today, like the way they took accountability collectively. And it's all of us in this thing together. You feel terrible for those guys that will be missed because of the time and effort that they put in, like I mentioned, but we got to be able to move forward, and we've all got to do a better job, and it starts with me.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dennis?
Coach, Quinton Lake has led the team in tackles the last 2 weeks. Is this something that's expected of Quinton, or more of a surprise that he's leading the team in tackles?
He's done a great job, and he's at a spot where sometimes you can be in the middle of a lot of the action, Dennis. So he's been really active. There's some reasons and some things that you would prefer him not to have to make those plays, so that it doesn't get to the second level or the third level if he's playing at safety. But Q's done a good job. He's in a position to be able to make a lot of plays, but his production is, I think tackles can be a little bit of a misleading stat, but I think Q's had two good weeks to start the season.
And to follow up, can you talk about the way Jared Verse has played the last first
He's
week?
been active. I thought he played really hard. I thought he made, some really good plays, and I think there's still opportunities for him to continue to grow and learn, and he's really coachable. Joe does a great job with that group, understanding exactly where all those play opportunities fall within the framework of some of the different calls and what the offense presents. But talk about a guy that played disruptive. I love the fumble that he forced, and it was unfortunate that they ended up recovering it for a touchdown. But you feel him, and you guys have heard me mention that. And, I like the way this guy plays the game.
Thank you, Coach.
You're welcome.
Adam?
Hey, Sean. Cooper had talked a lot about just how excited he was to go into the season finally healthy after the couple of years he had. Just morale wise, how is he doing after this news, and what do you try to tell him in the wake of this?
Yeah, he's strong. He's a man of faith. He and Anna, they trust in the Lord's plans for him, but it's tough because of all the things that you asked about is all true. The amount of time, the sacrifices to try to put yourself in a position to positively affect the team. And he's done that in a lot of ways, and he'll be able to continue to do that even if it's not on the field. But he was disappointed, but he's got his his spirits are as strong as they could be relative to the circumstances, while also acknowledging the real human emotions of the disappointment based on all those things that you asked in your question, Adam. So I have spoken to him, and I trust that there's nobody that's better equipped to handle this the right way, while also being real about how disappointing it is because of all the things that you asked about.
And you mentioned liking the look in the guy's eyes this afternoon. In the wake of a loss like that, how do you measure that they're properly responding without letting it weigh too heavily on them?
It's a good question. I think it's more of a feel, kind of an intuition. The way that they respond, some of the nonverbal feedback when you're asking or challenging or, sharing accountability as coaches and players alike, how we correct the things that we need to be able to learn from, and then how we flush it and say, what the expectations are as we move forward. And I think you have a good feel for that as the week goes on. But today was the first step. And, I think more an intuition than anything, and just some of the nonverbal feedback that we were receiving from the guys, and some verbal as well.
Thanks, Sean.
You're welcome.
Stu?
Hey, Sean, it looked like toward the end of the game yesterday, you were experimenting with either having Quinton Lake or maybe Cam Kitchens, replace JJ. I guess still to be determined, obviously have the week to figure that out. But what have you seen from Cam if he is indeed in an expanded role like that?
Talking about Cam Kitchens?
Yes.
Cam Kitchens. Yeah. He's a guy that, obviously is continuing to grow, and he did get an opportunity, once JJ went down to play a significant amount of snaps, and Jalen McCullough got in there a little bit in some of our heavy DB grouping packages, but communication, command, understanding of where he fits within the coverages, where those play opportunities arise. And it'll be a great challenge, but Chris Peak does a great job with those safeties, as well as Aubrey with the whole back end. And so, he's a guy that's going to continue to grow and mature, and guy that we really like.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jordan?
Hey, Sean, just to clarify on the injured reserve comments from earlier, is that more reflective of just the fact that you have so many people on there already in the numbers there, or is it more reflective of the actual timeline to return of these injuries?
More the amount of guys that have been on there. You know, the timeline isn't necessarily reflective, but you know, I guess you could say a combination of both. But I mean, you'd be almost at your full allotment. I think we would be at our full allotment already. Now you don't have to necessarily declare, you know, the return yet, but that's more what it is. But that's definitely a possibility, and we'll probably make that decision here either today or tomorrow.
Okay, and then this offseason, you guys really carried forward some momentum on this offensive identity, the physicality in the run game, the physicality up front, the size on the interior, with Kevin Dotson playing through something, and then Steve being gone, and Jonah. Do you still feel like you guys can establish that type of identity specifically, or will you have to really reassess and change some things about where you have scheme, or where you're able to hit those attack points?
Yeah, I think we have to figure that out. I mean, obviously, the things that you mentioned, you always want to be, regardless. You know, that's an important part of any offensive identity. You know, regardless of your personnel. So that's definitely something you want to do. We haven't been able to do that. There's a lot of reasons that we haven't been able to establish continuity, and there's been, you know, as many moving parts as you guys see. That's you know, it's definitely been interesting to navigate, but it's been unfortunate for those guys because there were certain plans and things like that, but this league, you know, nobody cares. You know, I feel terrible for those guys, and we certainly care, but the outside world doesn't. And the games go on, and so we have to figure out how to adjust and adapt. And you know, that's kind of an ongoing process for us as we navigate it in the midst of it right now.
And then last for me, when you went back over your rewatch, what did you see reflected in the defensive tape and the way that Arizona was attacking you?
Well, I think the first thing is you know, it gets out of hand real quick where it's 21-0 before you know it. And a lot of it were because of some explosives in the pass game, some unbelievable off-schedule plays by Kyler. And then the second half was more of a reflection of not being able to slow the run. So I thought, you know, it was kind of a perfect storm of great execution by them, us being a little bit off on some of our communication. And then I thought we settled in and played pretty well there, but they made you pay on those plays, and then they were able to get a bunch of different things going in the run game where they sustained possession and shortened the game, and that was really why they controlled it from wire to wire. But a lot of areas of improvement, a lot of things that I do believe are correctable, and it's more about, you know, seeing rather than anything that we or I or anybody else can say.
All right, we'll wrap
Thank
with
you.
Wyatt, then Lauren.
Hey, Sean. So after week one, you kind of mentioned about the having to change the game plan. And after these injuries, how much do you feel like long term the approach and the game plan on offense is going to have to change?
Oh, I mean, significantly. I mean, it's very different. I mean, and so but that's the job that we're tasked with. That's the situation and the circumstances that we have in front of us. And it's our job to maximize what we do have. What that looks like is something that we've got to be able to figure out. And, you know, there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of information that I'm giving you guys that we just recently had found out. And so those adjustments and those, you know, things that we have to really, you know, kind of digest and be able to figure out what it looks like are things that we'll start on as soon as I finish up with you guys.
And what was your evaluation of the run defense, and what are some things that you guys can do to kind of improve in that area?
It wasn't very good. You know, there were some moments of positives, but for the most part, it wasn't nearly up to our standards in terms of some of the front mechanics, some of the ways that we're hitting blocks, the way that we're disengaging, finishing every play on block, taking on doubles, taking on pin pull schemes, even just some of the second level fits. So there was, you know, you give Arizona credit, but it was not, there wasn't a lot. It's got to be majorly improved on.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Lauren.
Hey, Coach, with so many key injuries so early on in the season, how do you kind of regroup, and what is kind of your message to the locker room? How are you keeping the morale high to, execute with the rivalry game this weekend?
I think you just have to acknowledge, the reality of the situation. You feel for your teammates, but it's about how do we really put together a good week of preparation? How do we start to establish a rhythm and a rapport with the guys that are playing? And you hope that we're able to stay healthy to be able to continue to build on that, to put quality football out there. And like I said, we're capable of playing much better quality football on both sides of the football. I did think there were some positive takeaways with teams, but you have to be honest while acknowledging that, every single week is its own entity. I mean, we've seen that in the first 2 weeks. You guys have seen, our guys know that. And we can't allow 3 hours to define us good or bad. And if you do, then that's a mistake we can't afford to make. And I don't believe we will.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, guys.